What's up, everybody? This is Dark Macek with Brutally Delicious, coming at you with a review of Sweet and Lynch's brand new album, Heart and Sacrifice. So, I previously reviewed the most recent Stryper album, which was shared on Facebook by Michael Sweet himself. I'm also a pretty big fan of George Lynch's work with Doc, and those first 4 or 5 albums are absolute classics, and Wicked Sensation by Lynch Mob is awesome. So, these two paired together, what could go wrong, right? The end result is pretty fucking awesome. I went in wondering it would sound more like Stryper or more like Dokken, which is probably silly because George Lynch hasn't produced Dokken-like material in 30 some odd years now. It was heavier than I thought either one would be producing, except that Transgressor off of the most recent Stryper album sounds a bit like this one's opener. I'm already spoiling stuff. Let's talk about the songs. As I said, opening track, it's already heavier than anything I've ever heard George Lynch do. We've got double bass drumming. We've got like speed metal. The production sounds pretty modern. The drums definitely don't evoke the 80s. The bass is settled nicely in there. It's kind of an old school guitar tone, but still heavier than like classic Doc, and it's a cool mix. Michael's vocals, as always, sound tremendous. He's hitting really high notes. You'd think he was maybe 30, let alone, I presume he's around 60. And these dudes are producing music that makes them still sound hungry. I sort of envision something like when Steve Perry released new music 5 or 6 years ago with that single No Erasing. He wasn't trying to do Journey or anything. It just sounded like a more mature, I love my life and where I am and let's reflect on it. These guys sound like piss and vinegar. Let's move on. Leaving It All Behind. This is really good songwriting, not just good metal songwriting. It's kind of poppy, but in the best way possible. Great solo by George Lynch. Going into this, I was really saying to myself, God, I hope he still brings it. Of course, he's never going to hit me the way that In My Dreams' solo hit me the first time I heard it when I was like 15. But it's enough for me to look at it and say, yeah, he's still here. He's still got it. Moving on some more. You'll Never Be Alone. Good modern pop metal chorus. After all is said and done. This is a good ballad band, huh? I hate it when this comes up, but I never loved Dokken's ballads, but this band seems to be able to write them. I'm guessing Michael Sweet helped write it. I don't know whether he's playing guitar on this album, but I know he is a fairly prolific songwriter, so maybe he contributed. Will It Ever Change? This one's more modern. It reminds me a little bit of The New Winger, specifically their single Proud Desperado, which was co-written by Desmond Child. Great solo, again. And the last one we're going to talk about is It's Time to Believe. That main riff is the biggest ripoff of Metallica's Seek and Destroy since 1320 by Megadeth, specifically the section right before the solo, not the main riff. In a way, it's kind of cute. These dudes have both been around the block. I'm sure they knew about it when they recorded it. It was probably a tip of the hat. Still, though, fun song. So my main comment on this album, obviously I like the songs and I like the musicians involved, is that this is a middle-heavy album. I've talked before about albums that are front-heavy, back-heavy, or I guess top and bottom, meaning the first couple songs are really good or the last couple. This one's smack dab in the middle with all the best songs. I'm struggling to think of another example that fits this. Still, though, it's George Lynch, and he's still making music, and Michael Sweet is still killing it. I'm splitting hairs by talking about the album sequencing. It was a really fun collab, apparently third of its kind. I hadn't heard of the previous two. And let's hope they make it to 4. Rock on.